Good morning, Abundant Life Church. This is Pastor Chris, and today we're going to continue our study of Romans chapter 15, verses 1 through 6. And the last time we were together, we talked about the idea of weaker brother and stronger brother. And Paul is saying, you stronger brothers, you who know that there's no problem with eating meat sacrificed to idols, give in to your weaker brothers, support and encourage them, let them have their way. But is that a philosophy we're supposed to apply to every issue or disagreement in the church? It seems like that's a recipe for chaos. And Jesus didn't give in to the Pharisees. He argued with them. So how are church conflicts supposed to be handled? Who should get their way? Well, here's one way to handle it. Some people say you should never fight in church. You should give in on everything. Yeah, that's going to be a problem. What if somebody wants to teach from the Book of Mormon? Is that a fight worth having? I think it is. What if they want to start performing gay marriages in the church? Is that a fight worth having? I think it is. What if they want to let women be pastors or elders? I mean, that one's not so clear. So, how do we handle that? Do we fight or not? I think sometimes it's worth the fight. If somebody wants to fight because we want to change the carpet in some room in the church, I don't think that's worth a fight. But on big issues, on doctrinal issues, sometimes they're worth a fight. Sometimes they're at least worth we need to discuss this more and find out more about it. I don't think it's right to just say give in on everything. So let's go to the other extreme. Let's fight everything out. Let's argue every little issue, every single one. Are you tired already just hearing that? You know, some people say if you don't protect your rights, they'll go away. And Jesus said, turn the other cheek. What are the results if a church fights about everything, no matter how small? What will that church be like? They did a survey of major league umpires back in the 70s, and they asked these umpires, and they promised them anonymity. They said, they always asked, who was your least favorite manager to deal with? And in first place was Earl Weaver of the Baltimore Orioles. And if you know baseball history and you know Earl Weaver, he argued everything. Every call, no matter how minor, he argued. Every pitch, if he didn't get his way, he argued. It went on the entire game. He set records for being thrown out of the most games. Umpires hated him. And they hated him because, like I say, he argued everything, even the stuff he should have let go. He was named number one, the number one manager that umpires hated the most. Number two was also Earl Weaver, and so was number three. Nobody else was close. What is the church going to be like if they argue every single thing? I can tell you this, that church is going to get really small real fast because all of the reasonable people are going to leave. There has to be a happy medium. We can't just say that we're going to give in on everything, and we can't just say that we're going to argue everything. I think anybody with even a tiny ounce of brains knows the answer is somewhere in the middle. So, how are church conflicts supposed to be handled? Well, in any conflict, I think you have to obviously ask yourself which is more important? Is it the issue here or is it the relationship? Before you can tackle a problem, you've got to understand that key principle. Sometimes the situation at hand is more important, and other times the relationship is more important. How do you know the difference? Well, common sense helps a lot. It depends on what the issue is, and it depends on who you're having the issue with. If the argument is over where to eat dinner, here's the thing. Husbands, I'm telling you now, give in. If the argument is over your 10-year-old wanting to give himself a tattoo, you're probably going to need to put your foot down. The key is being able to tell which is which. You need to be able to ask yourself, is this fight worth it? Or would it be better to just let it go? Is the relationship so important to me that, maybe I do need to err on the side of the relationship more than on the issue? Now, just to speak in generalities, which would tend to be more important for matters in church, the issue or the relationship? And I'll tell you right now, it's not 50-50. You can't just say half the time it's the issue, half the time it's the relationship. One of those should carry more weight than the other. Now, here's what I think is very key to understanding. In churches, in most conflicts, the majority of the time, the relationship is usually, not always, but usually more important. So if the relationship is more important, then you should see why it's necessary for the more mature people to be ready to give in on small things. Because the more mature people are likely to be willing to give in. And again, the more mature people are more likely to understand which issues are important enough that we need to put our foot down. But again, why do the babies have to get their way even when they're not right? Easy, because the alternative is disunity over petty matters. If the matter's not that big a deal, be more willing to let it slide. Unity in churches simply matters too much, and this is what Paul was talking about here. Why does unity matter so much? Because without unity, you're going to have a lot of trouble having a church. It's unity that helps the purpose of the church. Our purpose is to make disciples. Our purpose isn't to get our way, it's to make disciples. And if we're constantly fighting over these tiny matters because we don't want to let the babies have their way all the time, we're not going to have the time or the energy or the resources to make disciples. What's the purpose of a fireman? That's not a hard question. If you have a house that's on fire, you're going to want a fireman. But what if your house is right on the county line? What if the county line runs right through your property? Your house is on fire. Okay? So both the county fire department and the city fire department show up. And they spend an hour arguing over who has jurisdiction. Okay? What are they not doing during that hour? Yeah, they're not putting the fire out in your house. They're letting your house burn down. Do you want the fire companies arguing over territory or putting out your fire? I think God is looking at us going, I gave you salvation. I gave you the gospel to take out to the world, and you're arguing over the kitchen? Really? You're arguing over what kind of music to have? Seriously? People are dying around you, and this is what you're arguing about. This is why it's important that the stronger brother be willing to go, you know what? It's not worth it. Let them have their way. We're going to talk more about this next time. Until then, have a great day.